when people come into this world, they're not just instantly homeless and addicts.
Why didn't they tell us that we'd have to figure out what we were eating for dinner every day?
So the day that Frank toured me through the facility, I cried.
When you get kids out of that fight or flight and out of that survival mode, that's when they get to start to learn about themselves.
Welcome back to Connections in Cal. It's your favorite local podcast sponsored by ServPro of Longview and Kelso and JoJo and Coco Boutique. I'm Katie Keaton, your Southwest Washington realtor.
And I'm Gabby Graves, your hometown lender.
And today I have a cheat sheet because these ladies have long titles. Today we are connecting with Chelsea Allison. She is the Community Outreach Coordinator of Community House on Broadway. See, that was a lot of words. And then we also have Christin Cole, and she is the Culinary Nutrition Education Specialist at Community House on Broadway. We are so excited to be speaking with these ladies.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
So today we're going to be talking about Community House on Broadway specifically, but then also as an umbrella and what all falls underneath that umbrella. We'll also be talking about Beth's Place, which is their new, what do you call it?
Youth shelter.
Youth shelter. I know I called it something the other day when I interviewed Chelsea and I said it wrong. So youth shelter. So we'll be talking about Beth's Place, and then we'll also talk about how you as a community can help and support all of these organizations. So let's just jump right into it, shall we?
Sure, absolutely.
I'm deciding not to call out Wayne, our producer, for my hair snafu from last time. So he's lucky. We're just going to get right down into it. So why don't you tell us about Community House on Broadway and kind of define the umbrella that it is?
Sure. We were talking just before the podcast how I don't necessarily believe that the average citizen knows all that's involved with Community House on Broadway, and that we actually have two organizations, Community House on Broadway and Core Health, which are two separate 501c3 nonprofit organizations. So Community House on Broadway, that's the nonprofit everybody local knows. It's been around since the 80s. So under that Community House on Broadway umbrella is the actual shelters themselves. So that's the main Community House on Broadway. That is Chess House, our Community House Extended Services, which is located by the hospital. It's the old Park Royale retirement home, and that holds 45 of what we call medically fragile residents or elderly. And then it also includes Beth's Place. So,
which is the youth shelter.
Yes. Yep. So Community House on Broadway, the three shelters fall under that organization.
Okay.
And then Core Health was developed in 2012 by our CEO, Frank Morrison, because when he took over Community House, he definitely saw a need for mental health services. And it actually goes back to even when him and his wife adopted 5 young kids and the mental health struggles that come with, kids in adoption. And he just saw this, overwhelming need for more mental health services in Cowlitz County. And especially, at Community House, when people are dealing with mental health issues and sobriety and all the traumas people have gone through, people sometimes have what we call a crisis, mental health crisis. And if you don't have somebody who's specially trained to handle that, it can be pretty tough. And at that time, we could not get anybody to come serve or actually come out physically to the shelter. So Frank was donated a large medical facility on 14th, and he brought in his own mental health counselors, and they basically spent 9 months to a year developing a mental health clinician program. And now, today, Core Health has over 200 employees. And so Core Health, the way that Core Health funds itself is the clinicians and peer counselors, they have billable time with our residents and with our clients. It's not necessarily people who just live in the shelters. And so they get to bill, the insurance agencies, the state, Medicare. So that's how Core Health is funded. I will say Community House on Broadway, which is what we're mostly going to talk about today, that is almost 100% funded by grants and community donations.
Yeah, you mentioned before we started that 36% of the funding for Community House on Broadway is from individuals, which is crazy.
Last year, in 2024, I was looking at the impact report, and 36% of the funding for Community House on Broadway, which includes Community House, Chess, and even Beth's Place, 36% came from individual contributions, which is, I think it just goes to show how amazing our community is. And, we're definitely, we walk the talk, we've provided the resources, we have it, we have a way to break generational addiction and homelessness. And now we need the support. And we definitely see the community showing up to provide that.
Yeah. Well, and homelessness is such a hot topic and everything like that. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions around, the topic in general. Do you want to speak to some of those misconceptions? Like, what do you think when you're having those broad conversations or hearing it, or God forbid on a Facebook group, seeing people's comments?
Yeah.
Probably the worst place to be, but...
Connections and Cowlitz is sponsored by locally owned and operated ServPro of Longview Kelso. They are the #1 residential and commercial cleanup company in the United States. They help with fire damage, smoke damage, mold remediation, and so much more. Remember, you as a homeowner and business owner have a say as to who comes into your business or home. Locally owned, locally operated, ServPro of Longview Kelso.
We are also sponsored by JoJo and Coco Boutique, a woman-owned business where they focus on the relationship, not the sale. The styles are quality. They're timeless pieces that work for women of literally any age. Stop in for you or someone you love. You'll leave in stylish pieces and feeling great about yourself. JoJo and Coco Boutique on Commerce Avenue in Hudson. What are your thoughts on it, just overarching? And Christin, yours as well.
Yeah, I'll say a little bit and then I'll let you go for it. But what I like to remind people is that when people come into this world, they're not just instantly homeless and addicts. Every single person is somebody's son or somebody's daughter or mother or father or sister or brother. What I will say is that 80% of people who stay with us at Community House, 80% come from a generational home of addiction, abuse, and poverty or homelessness. And so a lot of people that you see now on the streets, it's, there's a really good chance that they were born into that life, into that cycle of crazy. And that's why Beth's Place is so important right now, is because the number of teens and kids that we're seeing on the streets unaccompanied, which means without parents, it's out of control. And if we think the homeless problem is bad now, give it 10 years, even 8 years, it's going to be double that. The starting age that we're finding that kids begin to use is 11 years old.
Wow.
So, so when you talk about the misconception with homelessness, I think it's just really good to remember that more than likely the people that we see on the streets now, they probably just didn't even have a chance.
Right.
And that's what we provide. And through mental health and our, sobriety programs, we definitely offer that chance to turn it around. So
Well, and we were talking, sorry, I hit the microphone, Wade. Kristen, Gabby, and myself were just casually chatting before the podcast, and we were talking about our own teenagers because we all three have teenagers. And, talking about what we have to teach them and the trials and tribulations and just kind of, going over all that stuff. Oh, you got bad grades. Oh, you lose this privilege or this or that, or you know what I mean? Those middle school years, people. But it's funny when you're a parent, you realize like, wow, children and teens need to be taught common sense. Like these life skills need to be taught. Gabby's talking about, I need to teach my sons that they have to email a teacher and say, hey, I missed this quiz. When can I make it up? Those are things that have to be taught. So when you're coming from those generational homes where the parents don't know how to teach those things, it totally makes sense why these kids are off to a disadvantage and why places like Beth's Place need to exist.
Well, and it's hard when you're not taught those skills growing up. It is hard to be a parent and then have those habits and skills in your home. And so there's, there's a lot of ways that I feel like I'm loving, caring, and teaching my children that's breaking generational trauma. But at the same token, there's still so many other skills and habits that I lack. Grocery shopping and cooking healthy meals for my kids, which is a big deal. And I used to think it wasn't as big of a deal, but it really is, because how are they going to be able to do that for their children? And so I'm, being aware that not everyone had an amazing parent, and parents, it's up to you to be amazing. So do it.
Yeah. And also I will say, give yourself some grace. You guys.
Yes.
Because with the things that we see, I mean, if your worry is about better grocery shopping and better planned nutritional meals, like, you're doing it right. I mean, the kids that we see coming in the doors, for example, we have a 16-year-old right now who hasn't been in school since they were 12 years old. So, give yourself some grace. Because the fact that you care and that you're showing up every day, that's all they need. Yeah. And that's what we're here for the kids that don't have that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think it's kind of an invisible problem, because we talk about the kids being on the street, but really it's so inflated, because it might not be, like, if someone saw an 11-year-old on the street, they're like, oh my gosh, what is happening? How can I help? But a lot of these kids are couch surfing, staying with friends, but they don't have an actual home base.
They're also very good at staying under the radar.
Yes,
right. I will say.
Well, it's embarrassing.
Wants to speak on it.
It's not something that they're necessarily proud of. Right. They don't have the home to go to, or, so it is something that they'd want to keep under wraps. And for me, it's just such an eye-opening perspective, because I do have 2 teens, and to see them go through life that, I've been with them their whole life, obviously. But I joined the group. I'm with Beth's Place exclusively. And since October, I would say that I've learned more from them than anything else. It's just such a shift in perspective. And it's just a human experience and an interruption that I want to make at this timeline of their life that is so pivotal to getting them to where they need to be, or to a healthy lifestyle that they can see and make that shift themselves. Yeah. So I'm just so excited to be a part of their journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
I couldn't agree more.
Yes, and we talk a lot about mentorship on the podcast, just because it's something that we're passionate about, and we have a lot of ties to youth sports, so we talk a lot about coaching and how the positive impact of coaching, but it's really the positive impact of just good adult role models. Right. It doesn't matter what, it doesn't matter what the course is. Like you said, for you specifically, teaching kids how to cook, teaching kids about nutrition, that's somewhere where you can be a positive role model and get them on the right course just to teach them a new skill.
Right. And it gives them a platform. I mean, just yesterday, I had a teen that they get an allowance when they meet all the criteria and they do the things they're supposed to. She showed up and made a specific beeline to me, and she's like, look what I bought. And she had a grocery bag she had rice, she had tomatillo. She's like, we're going to make this authentic Mexican dish that she had when she was at home. And she taught me. I had not done it in the method which she did. It was delicious. And just the pride that she took and the memories. When we're in the kitchen together, they talk about the smell, the taste, like this reminds me of, and we get to cultivate these memories and bring them back. And it feels good. Like I have this term that I like to refer back to as culinary therapy. I feel like it's a thing. I feel like for me, I am cured in the kitchen. Like it's just a place where I can come back to myself. And to give that to those kids is just a gift.
What we've seen, we've experienced firsthand. So even before Beth's Place, we actually also have a youth center called Ascent.
Right. And that's on Commerce as well.
Yep.
With the big pretty sign.
Yeah, and it has the beautiful mural of the pink and purple mountains. That was a centennial mural. My office is right below it. I feel very lucky. But that's our youth center. And that's kind of, the work that we were doing in there kind of is what sparked the idea and especially the need for Beth's Place. So before Beth's Place, and we still work out of Ascent. Now Beth's Place and Ascent kind of work one and one. And Ascent is, remember how we talked about the difference between Community House on Broadway and Core Health? So Ascent is a Core Health building.
Okay.
Because it's, our clinicians are based out of there. And that space, it's not a residential space, it's not where people live. It's used specifically for mental health services and for kids, for recreational therapy, art therapy,
Video game therapy.
Yeah, video game therapy. So that's a Core Health building, because sometimes I think people see our Ascent building and they assume it's Community House and it's this big, beautiful building, and but that is a Core Health building. Anyways, we have a lot of programs that run out of Ascent, and one of those programs is called SUD. It's substance dependency. We have SUD group for adults and for kids. And the group that we have for kids, which is essentially teens, middle school, high school age. So when kids get in trouble at school or with the courts, specifically, if there's substances involved, a lot of times the judge will give them the option to go to juvie or do SUD program.
Okay.
And a lot of kids pick SUD, but it's quite a commitment. I mean, it is 5 days a week after school, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Like, it's up to you to figure out how to get there. You can't be late, and then over time, it'll go down to 3 days a week or 2 days, and then 2 days a week, and then they graduate. And what Christin was talking about, when we first get these kids into this program, right, they're
At Best Place.
No, at Ascent.
Okay.
When we first get kids into the SUD program at Ascent, they're right off the streets and they're right out of getting out of trouble. And there's a little resistance at first, but once they start building a relationship with us, and they start building a relationship with their mental health clinician and their peer counselor and their SUD group leader, and they start to experience compassion and normalcy and accountability and safety. And, these kids don't live with us, but they're coming and being with us every day. And so they all of a sudden have a network of people that they can rely on if they need somebody. And once you get kids out of that just constant survival mode, that generations worth of chaos, a lot of times people and kids, they don't know anything different than chaos. They feel if their life isn't chaotic, they're doing something wrong. And so when you get kids out of that fight or flight and out of that survival mode, that's when they get to start to learn about themselves. And like Christin was saying, now that this young lady is not trying to find her next meal or trying to find her next shelter, she's getting excited about cooking a dish, you know?
She made that comment. She said, I used to do this at home and I love cooking so much. I want to keep doing it. And we have a frequency where we get kids in. They're going to help me make dinner every night. They also have to help do the dishes. They also have to learn how to prep the food. So there's life skills that are involved that are so important. We go back to talk about our teenagers. Like, these are the skills that was missed for them.
Right.
And whether it's doing the dishes or mopping the floor and like how to do it, it's not necessarily like a punishment. It's just like everyone needs to learn how to do this kind of stuff.
Well, and food is such like a normalcy.
Yes.
And it's something where it's like, oh my gosh, which I think all of us can agree. The worst part of adulthood is cooking for ourselves 3 times a day. Or
I might disagree.
You would agree, Kristen.
I'm going to disagree too, but I would say my sisters and my mother, like they would agree with you.
Oh my gosh.
They're over
I
it.
hate it. I hate it. I'm like served all of the videos online that it's like, why didn't they tell us that we'd have to figure out what we were eating for dinner every day?
So
like,
true.
That's so me.
It's a lot of deciding.
Yeah, me too.
Yes.
But it's like, okay, we're cooking breakfast, lunch, dinner. This is something that's happening every day. So for these kids, it's not something where it's like, oh yeah, I made a meal, one day this month. It's like, I'm learning how to feed myself. And it gives you guys a chance to talk about other things, like you said, because it's such a communal time, and cooking with somebody, you learn a lot about them. You're not sitting with the kids like therapy session, staring into their eyes, but like you said, culinary therapy, where it's like not only are the taste and the this, and you can be proud of yourself at the end, but also it's a good chance to talk about just everyday stuff
and process. Yeah, absolutely.
And what's so fantastic about Beth's Place, and when Frank was originally coming up with the idea for Beth's Place, so I think majority of people have heard by now that part of Beth's Place was the former Carriage Restaurant.
Right.
And so that's the kitchen that Christin works out of. But we've converted that space also into an education and employment training center.
Wow.
So we have a full classroom, we have a full computer lab, we have a full what's called a maker's space. IT people will know that term.
I don't.
I'm learning all new things, but essentially it's pretty much an IT lab where we've put in 3D printers. We're putting in a podcast studio. We're putting in an actual driving simulator.
Wow.
Our IT department, they're like just loving this maker space.
It's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
And so, yes, cooking is absolutely a foundational skill that we are teaching and utilizing as therapy and as, basic life skills and possible employment someday. But, we're also giving them a lot of different opportunities to, like we mentioned before, learn what they like, learn what they're good at. Mackin's Auto Body next door to us has also offered internships and part-time jobs for the kids. So if we get some kids in who are interested in mechanics, that's a perfect way to start learning about that industry. Or a lot of kids are going to be interested in IT. That's the way our industry is going. But
Can we get an intern?
I know. It's so exciting. And just a little story to kind of give some perspective. We have a young man he joined us. It's been a few years, so this was before Beth's Place, but it was through Ascent. And he came through the SED program that we spoke about. And he worked really hard for months and months and ended up graduating the program. And because he did so well and he was so committed, our boss, Frank, ended up hiring him and for a full-time position. And he started out working with what we call Kids Club. Kids Club is at Ascent as well, and it's our daycare for kids 5 and under. Because all of our residents and clients, they get four free hours of childcare a day.
Okay.
So that way they can go to their appointments and their, group therapy, things like that. Well, this young man, he started working in Kids Club with the young kids. And then with Beth's place and all the construction that was going on, our maintenance team needed some extra help. So then he started splitting his time and doing maintenance. And it's so amazing just to watch him blossom and become his own person, because now he's discovered that he really likes working with his hands, and he likes creating things and being useful. And he came from a home of chaos and substance use, and he's had some pretty devastating things happen, but now it's like he works full time. He's had a raise. He finally has his own little apartment that's a block away from work. I mean, this kid was walking every day from Ascent to South Kelso and back. Yeah. I mean, dedicated, and he literally has a list of goals on his phone, and that he works on checking off weekly. And so, I just think the overall theme here is we have seen this work. Mm-hmm. We see how our program, by putting mental health first, by putting sobriety first, by offering kids a safe environment, we've seen them break generational, curses. And we know this program works. And what we just need support from our community to continue to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So.
And it sounds like there's a lot of different ways that people can support. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you had mentioned before, 36% of your funding comes from individuals, which is astounding. And that's a big testament to our local community. Mm-hmm. But furthermore, it sounds like maybe even like internship opportunities with, well-established businesses in town, job shadows, things like that. Mm-hmm. It sounds like there's a lot of different ways that individuals and businesses alike, churches, different organizations, Rotary, those kinds of things, could help align with Beth's Place and help these kids, figure out who they are, what they like, build a routine, and how to become happy, healthy adults.
Yeah, contributing to our society.
Well, and it's funny because right before you brought up this gentleman, I was thinking about the fact that it's also helping these kids network, which it's like, whatever. But that's actually a life skill, you know what I mean?
True.
There's a reason why they say it's not what you know, it's who you know.
This was the same young man that I was like, he was with me when we approached Christin.
Right.
And so, yeah.
Yes. And I actually was going to bring that up too, because we were talking about how Christin got her job, and she was at a speaking engagement talking about nutrition education, and because she is also the Zesty Chef, people. So follow her online, because she does live streams of cooking, which apparently I need really bad.
Not even apparently tonight and see if I can use you for dinner.
Yeah, she does live scenes.
Yeah, you have to get yourself seen, you have to get yourself out there, and that's also helping these kids, where it's like, okay, you're not just seen when you're in trouble or by a teacher who already has their opinion said about you. You know, you're getting a chance to highlight the good things about you and network and meet people, and that's exactly how you get off to a good start once you're an adult.
And I will say, yes, absolutely. But I do want to touch on the fact as well that because these kids are, under 18 and they are minors, Beth's Place also is very high security, and we definitely value the privacy and information of our young kids. I mean, you have to either be beeped in or have a code to enter Beth's Place. Anybody who works at Beth's Place, we've all had to have been fingerprinted with federal background checks, TB testing. Volunteers for Beth's Place have to do the same process of fingerprinting, federal background check, TB testing. And, if I give a tour of Beth's Place to, a church or a social club or individuals, we make sure that the kids are out of the building to protect their privacy. So Yeah, I mean, it's awesome because, you know, the kids do get to be seen for who they are by our staff, but we also keep them very, very protected from the public because they are, you know, a vulnerable demographic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and like we talked about before, you're saying this works. We can show that it works. And for all those people out there yelling in our community, in Washington, in the Pacific Northwest, in the country, we need to figure out this homelessness problem. We need to figure out this homelessness crisis. You know, it's like, okay, we need to start at the bottom. We need to start at the root of the problem, and we need to help these kids know that there are other ways to go through life.
When you pointed something out earlier that, you know, when people talk about how bad the homeless problem is currently, just wait another 10 to 8 years.
Yeah.
That is such a short amount of time.
Yeah, it's scary.
In both directions. And so if you are somebody who has a skill and a want to help, reach out to Allison or Chelsea Allison, excuse me.
Mrs. Allison.
My husband gave me 2 first names.
But yeah, reach out to her because really 8 years is going to come by really fast. And so if you can be one of those people that helps make an impact in even like 2 kids' lives in that 8 years, and we multiply that by how many people have this, you know, tug on their heart to get involved, it's going to make a huge impact in our community, a generational impact in our community. And that's what people want to see. So it starts with jumping 2 feet in.
I often see people have very strong opinions about people facing addiction or homelessness or poverty. And I think you know, hit the nail on the head or hammer on the head.
Nail on the head, girl, you got it.
Yeah. With jumping 2 feet in. Yeah. So whenever I hear people who are frustrated by, you know, the current homeless population in like our parks or on the streets, for one, I can totally understand.
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't want a homeless camp a block away from my home. I totally get that. But the only way that we're going to handle it is by taking action. And, you know, Beth's Place and Community House, it's such a testament as well to our CEO, Frank Morrison. I mean, as you guys, we are a Christian-based organization, and which I'm just so grateful to work for, because what other company or organization do you get to work for where you get to start your meetings off with prayer and end your meetings with prayer? And if that's something that's important to you, then it's a wonderful thing to be a part of. But it's such a testament to Frank because he will foremost not take any credit. He will tell you that this is God's doing, and that we're just answering the call, being the boots on the ground. But, you know, how many meetings do we need to have as a community about what to do with the homeless population? And, like, we just keep talking about it and talking about it. And Frank was finally just like, I'm done talking about it. Like, we're going to build this youth shelter. We're going to do something. We're going to provide the resources, provide the shelter, provide mental health clinicians, provide, you know, sobriety clinicians, people who are subject matter experts with youth. We're going to partner with the school district and DCYF, and we're just going to jump in on faith and do something.
Less talking, more doing.
Absolutely.
And actually,
if not you, then who?
Totally. Yeah. We hear about Frank all the time.
We do.
We have not met him, but
I have.
Okay, I have.
Frank's
you
amazing.
won't forget him.
Yeah, I have not met him, but we have definitely heard about him a lot, and heard about him a lot from the people who we talk to that are starting nonprofits and starting youth organizations. Like Tyler Hoagman mentioned Frank a lot when he was talking about starting Neighborhood Heroes when he was on the podcast. Andrew Kiggins has talked about Frank with us and how he has been inspirational to him, and he has the Cuts for Kids and that kind of stuff. And I'm missing people, but we have heard in this room talking to people that are change makers. Okay, well, Frank Morrison helped me get on the right direction or explain to me how to do this or that.
Do you hear that, boss? Local legend.
Making change.
Morrison.
Well, in all honesty, like I have goosebumps right now. And what it really feels like, the things that you're explaining, is that, Frank, his team, all of you guys, there's been a line drawn in the sand of like, this is the year that we're going to make it better. And it's getting better every single year. And so if your passion, again, what is your passion? Yeah. I'm pretty sure that the community house, Beth's Place, Core Help could use your passion in some way.
Yeah. So also, I wanted to transition a little bit. We've talked about how you have seen the impact from Beth's Place and these kids getting a solid footing. But we also talked a little bit before we started about the different stats for Community House on Broadway in general. And for those people that say, oh, these homeless shelters maybe are enabling people, because I'm sure you hear that.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? Let's talk about your success rate. Let's talk about the exciting, happy stuff that's working so that people can feel a little less negative about the sitch.
And I always like to remind people as well, Community House, we've touched on it a few times about our focus with mental health and sobriety. So when anybody comes in to any one of our shelters, there is an agreement that is made. And because accountability is a large part of, mental health and sobriety, and a basic life skill that people need to learn. And if you come from generations worth, like we said, of chaos, and accountability's never been a thing, or
or
you've never been held accountable, or you have been held accountable, but you just have continued to lose things because of it. So we always address mental health, sobriety, and we do that through accountability. People who get to stay with us, they get free housing, free meals, free mental health services. They get a case manager, a clinician, a peer advisor. They get Kids Club, which is childcare. They get so many resources. And the agreement that they make with us is that they work their program, because every single person has a individual program that we create for them. So they need to go to their appointments, they need to work their program, and they need to remain clean and sober. Now, most people who come to us who are in addiction, they're not going to walk into our doors sober. So we start off by conducting a drug test, and then we do frequent drug testing. And as long as we see the levels coming down, we can see that they're, committing to their agreement. And then eventually they will have no substances in their system, and it just needs to stay that way. So because when people talk about different shelters, there are two different kinds. So there are organizations like ours that are clean and sober organizations, where we put mental health first, where we put accountability first. And then there are other organizations, you will hear them referred to as wet houses, but they're basically shelters that provide shelter, but continue to let the population use. And we just find that that's not a solution. If we were to bring people in and put them through a 2-week detox, but not solve the root problem, and then work on giving them a house, an apartment, work on getting them a job, work on getting them, they're going to lose it within a month. Right. And then we're back to square one, and then we're back to this societal issue. And so with that being said, our program, so last year we had, through Community House, you will also hear Community House referred to as CHOB, which is Community House on Broadway.
Yes. Let's go with that, because I'm so sick of saying Community House on Broadway. I know, it's a lot of words. So CHOB. CHOB, okay. We can say CHOB, and I often say CHOB, and people will be like, huh?
That feels really weird. CHOB. I'm going to keep saying Community House on Broadway. CHOB. We're going to go with that.
We're used to it now, because, And then, so at CHOB, we had 593 people come through our doors in 2024. Now, mind you, we can only hold 120 people at a time. And there's no like stay limit with us. The average stay is about 67 to 90 days. But we have some families who stay with us for a year, you know, while they work on themselves as parents, and then their kids are also worked on, you know, and sometimes finding housing can be difficult.
Girl, don't we know it?
Yeah. So luckily we have very talented, very good subject matter experts with our housing staff and our employment staff. So we are very fortunate to have those individuals in our support center. But we had pretty much almost 600 people come through our doors at Community House last year. 441 of those were adults. 152 of those were kids. So there's on average 30 to 50 kids at Community House at any given time. Keep in mind though, the kids at CHOB, they are with parents or some sort of guardian.
Right.
So that's where Beth's Place differs, because the kids at Beth's Place are 13 to 17 and they are unaccompanied. Mm-hmm. So we had 152 kids come through CHOB and 97 families. And then at Chess, which is Community House Extended Services, mind you, that holds 45 people at any given time. And we had 148 people go through Chess. So all together, because Beth's Place wasn't open yet, so between CHOB and Chess, we had 741 people in our local community come through either Community House or Chess, and 83% of those people exited successfully over and stayed with us over 30 days. So.
That is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. What can you define to us what it means to graduate successfully?
Yeah. Have a successful exit?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, a successful exit is, we would consider somebody a successful exit who has worked their mental health program, who has is now clean and sober, working with their SUD groups and their clinicians, and who has found a form of housing and a form of employment. So
wow.
People who have completely turned their lives around and became contributing members of society. And, you know, out of 741 people and 83% of that population being successful, I would say that Community House on Broadway, like,
you're the best.
You're leading the charge and
people
change.
Can bet on us.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
And like you guys have both pointed out, people in our community get really upset about, you know, where we're at with, you know, our homeless population. But quite honestly, I mean, you guys are leading the change. Successfully exiting, what is that, over 500 people in a year? You guys are quite literally making the change in our community.
Yeah. And with Core Health, mind you, we have over 200 employees with Core Health. The majority of them, if not all of them, being some sort of mental health clinician, either bachelor's level or a peer support, which a peer is a special certification. And it's the best way to explain it is kind of like big brother, big sister, but with a mental health education and focus.
Okay.
So in order to be a Core Health client, you don't have to be a resident. And so between adults and youth, we have over 2,300 clients a month.
Wow.
With Core Health. So that's in Cowlitz County. So that's 2,300 people that we are also helping
stay out of those.
Yeah.
Stay out of
health.
Needing to get to the place where they need Community House.
Absolutely.
CHOB or
Yes. I mean, our youth clinicians, they go and meet with the kids who are our clients in the schools daily, so we don't need to rely on, parents to get them to their appointments. We make it as easy as possible for mental health to be a focus. And so, like I said, last year we housed over 741 people. We have about 2,300 clients a month through Core Health. So what we really need, we're making it happen. We're the organization to support. If you want to do something about our homeless population, about our addiction epidemic, you can support Community House on Broadway. And the biggest thing we need, nobody likes to say it, but
money.
When it comes to money,
dollar bills, y'all.
Nobody likes to say it, but it's expensive.
Oh gosh, yeah.
we got 120 people living at Community House. We got 45 people living at Chess. We're eventually going to have up to 48 teens at Beth's place. Just the lighting bill, the water bill, sewer, garbage, and then you factor in the payroll of our staff and food costs. Donations are wonderful. We're actually accepting food donations now. We're trying to fill up the pantry for Beth's place. But when it comes down to it, really what we need is funding. We need funding for the operational costs, especially for Beth's place right now. Because of construction and because of the things we've put in place this last year, once again, we jump both feet in. Mm-hmm. But in order to pay for Beth's place operationally, we need to raise about $36,000 a month from community donations and grants. So we need your support. We have the numbers. We know we're making a difference, but we need
so how do people do that?
Yeah. So if you go to our website, it's CHOB LV.
So CHOB. It's like Russian. Maybe you should look up if it's a word in Russian.
Oh no, I don't want to look up. It makes me nervous. But so CHOBLV.org. That is our website, and there's actually there's a ways to give tab at the top, and it talks about volunteering. It talks about match of the month. There's an actual donate button, and you click that, and there's a drop down menu, and you can choose to donate to the operational funds. You can choose to donate to match of the month. It's really easy. You can actually sign up for monthly auto donation, which is the simplest way to donate. So you want to donate $100 a month. You just type that in, and then you click monthly auto roll, and you put in your card information, and it'll start
auto-deducting
monthly. And then at the end of the year, you'll get a receipt that you can claim for your taxes.
Ooh.
But another way,
the CPA in the group.
Yeah,
not a CPA, but yes.
We are, we're well aware, and we make sure that our people who support us, that, they get as much credit from our government as possible. But we also have a program called Match of the Month. So this month is an anonymous donor, but we've had and this is where you were saying local businesses.
Yeah, business owners, managers.
A great way for local businesses to support, because you also get some incentive out of it. We've had EGT, we've had Gibbs and Olson, Kirkpatrick, David and Leslie Orr, Pam and Brian Crisp here at Realty One, have all been at some point the match of the month. And it's where a donor or a local business or individual donates, pledges $5,000, up to $5,000. And so then it's up to us and Community House to raise $5,000 in community donations. And when we raise $5,000, then that donor will match it, turning it to $10,000. So really 2 ways to contribute. We do not have a match of the month donor for March yet, or April, or going forward. So we need to get some match of the month donors lined up. And if you become a donor and you don't want to remain anonymous, say you're a local business, we will do advertising for you. You get shout outs on our Facebook page and Instagram and our website. You get highlighted on our printed material. We frequently do radio spots or podcasts where we will mention that your business is supporting directly local organization. And then if you aren't in a spot to be the match of the month donor, you can help us raise that $5,000. I mean, $20 even goes a long way to that. So, just the monthly giving like we talked about, or contributing, being a part of the match of the month, either being a donor or supporting raising that. And yeah, I feel like I've been talking a lot. But,
Well, some quick math, people. If the community house needs $38,000 a month, let's round up to 40. We need 4,000 people in this community to give $10 a month.
Yeah.
So that is 1.5 coffees. Sorry, Red Leaf, we love you. We will come see you the other 28 and a half days of the year, month.
It's for a good cause.
Yeah. So 1.5 coffees a month you forgo. And I know that there's over 4,000 people in our community that want to help this homeless crisis that we have in Cowlitz County.
Absolutely.
And our kids.
Yes.
Because it starts with the kids.
Right.
Starts with
Absolutely.
the kids. Absolutely. Well, is there anything else that either of you guys want to touch on before we start wrapping this up?
I'm going to let Christin talk because I have pretty much taken over the mic this hour.
What did you say earlier? You felt like the woman from Anchorman?
Yeah. What is her name?
Okay,
While you
write in
speak,
the
I'm gonna look
comments
that
because yeah, she made the joke like, "Oh, I feel like I'm an Anchorman." Like, what's that woman's
There's
name?
Ron Burgundy, and then there was his sidekick.
And all three of us had no idea and looked at her like she was a little bit crazy.
Yep. What are you watching? I guess my personal perspective, like I said, I've been part of the organization only since October, and I came from a perspective of not fully understanding what the community house, I understood what their name was, but what they truly did was not something that I was fully aware of. And I can remember Chelsea approached me at a talk I was giving and said, "Hey, we'd be interested in having you. We're starting a youth shelter. Would you be interested?" So I met Frank. And the day that Frank toured me through the facility, I cried. It hits home for me. I have teenage boys of that age. And it's just the extent that they went to make this facility so nice, and the thought that they went into to provide for the kids on a level that's, I mean, I don't know that I give my kids all those opportunities as a mom. So I'm very excited, and I was very touched. I deep down want to give what I can in the culinary space and teach kids. I show my love through food, and why not show them a life skill at the same time? So my experience has been transformative because personally it's changed my perspective of the homeless crisis. And I understand it from a platform that's just, it blew my mind. I'm going to give you an example. So I park in the back parking lot behind the community house every day. And sometimes when I go to leave work, it's dark out. And there's like a little tent where residents or whoever will go out and take breaks. And there's always a lot of people there. And so I recognize a lot of the people now that I'm working there. And so we'll chat a little bit. And there's one gentleman that I frequently see every day. And so we'll always say our good mornings and our goodbyes. And this was later than normal this night. And he was actually walking back into the community house, and I was leaving Beth's place. And he's like, "Oh, hey, there's a guy that's having a hard time. I'm going to walk you to your car." And so he walked me all the way to my car and made sure that I got home safe. And you have this external perspective that's really unfortunate, and I had it. But being a part of this and understanding, like what Chelsea was saying, it's just this trauma. Like, we're all humans, and we've all had an experience in trauma at some level. And if you can look at it from that perspective, it just like gives you an empathy that I just was never tapped into before.
Right.
And so the purpose that I tell you this story is I want to highlight these people and any people, because we've all had trauma, and we've all had to where we've moved through it. And online, you can go see success stories on the community house. And I think it's so cool if you guys can go and just read through some of the stories and just see where the people started to where they're at. I mean, I could tell my own success story. That's what I was on stage doing when she approached me. And so we're going to start a podcast. It's called Call Me Invisible. And it's kind of an interview style. And what we're going to do is give a platform for individuals to tell their story, and story of resilience, and how they were at one place and got to another, and how the community house was able, our resources were able to help them. And I'm just so excited. So that's to come. So
I'm excited.
Stay tuned
Yeah.
for that.
Oh my gosh, I
Super
can't
exciting.
wait.
Well, it is too, because it's like, people make the comment. First of all, we know that most people in America are not very financially literate, and all of us, or a lot of people, are living paycheck to paycheck and could be moments away from being in a crisis themselves.
Yeah.
But a huge part of it is that family support is what saves a lot of people from being in those situations.
Yes.
My husband and I, we had our first when we were 20 years old, and sometimes we'll joke about how poor we were. And we were, I tell a story about, I had this like 10-year-old Nissan car that was kind of crappy, and we drove it with our baby, our 7-month-old, we drove to Idaho, and it broke down in the middle of the night halfway there. And we didn't have money for a hotel, and we didn't have money to get the car fixed. I called my dad. You know what I mean? My dad put his credit card in. Was like, okay, everything's fine.
Right.
But that's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Not everybody can do that.
And God bless dads, by the way.
Yes.
My daddy has saved me many times.
I love my dad.
Yeah. So giving people support for those people, because not everyone has something to fall back on, really. And so it'll be so fun to hear those stories of success.
I can't wait. Yeah, we're going to have a big box of tissues.
Yeah.
And just
Oh, man.
Yeah. But I think that this can propel us into not only residents of the community house, but just people of the community. And like this could be a broad swipe of people that could all tell a very similar story. And how cool would it be for the kids to see this and to be able to be part? They can't be in front of the camera, but they can be behind. So they're going to help us with production and editing and lighting and just the setup. And then they can also see, like, I have a chance. I can turn things around now, because look what happens if you don't. And it's just later in life that they did it. And not that it's right or wrong. It was just their path. But when these kids can see that they can turn their ship around at 13 to 17 years old, like, how transformative is that?
Right.
That they're, that they're worthy, and that they're capable, and that
They're supported.
And, but they find their own self-confidence, and that, just because they come from a certain circumstance that they did not have control over, they are just as worthy as the next person, if not more so. And I was touring somebody the other day, and I explained how, these kids, once they are out, like we talked about, out of survival mode, and once they start really diving in and succeeding at school, and cooking in the kitchen and joining the podcast, and they start getting involved in their first employment, like, these kids, they're actually going to soar because they have had to face really hard survival when they were young, and they know how to get through that.
Adversity.
Yes, adversity. And so, don't count them out. And, they're worthy, and they are more than capable of being successful. And we're just so excited to see what comes out of this.
Yeah. Christin, could you remind us one more time what the name of that podcast will be, and when you guys expect to have it out? Or?
It's Call Me Invisible, and we're going to start We're just getting the equipment now, so I would say in the next 2 months you could probably see something.
Awesome. Okay, well, definitely let us know, and we'll make sure that we push it out everywhere.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
And one last quick thing. You touched on the fact that, these kids they need to be told that they're worthy and they're capable, right? And I think for some people that haven't experienced a feeling like this before, it's just kind of like, well, of course you're worthy. Yeah. But really, people who have been born into certain situations and that's all they see, they think that just people believe that their life is just, this is how it's going to be and it's not going to get any better. And there are some people that believe that there are people that have great lives and people that don't have great lives. Yeah. And being able to convince a young kid or a young adult or anyone really struggling with addiction and mental health that, you can actually have that life that you envision is huge. And it takes time and it takes stability, stability of shelter and food. Yeah. It does. Yes.
It's just reigniting the light in them, right? Like it might have dulled, but I think it's still there, and we're just fostering an opportunity to relight it.
Yeah. Right. One of my closest friends struggled with addiction for a long time, and when I asked him, what's your dream? Like, what do you want the end goal to be? He replied back that he just thinks that he's not somebody was supposed to have a life that way. He just thinks that he's one of those people that can't have the wife and the kids and the sobriety and the home. Yeah. And once he realized that he is capable of that, he is absolutely soared. And he is the best father, the best husband, all the things.
Yeah. Like I touched on, we rely very heavily on our faith as well. I mean, we don't force anybody to be a Christian. We don't require that of people. But those of us who are and who work for the organization, we rely heavily. And we definitely see that's the enemy. The enemy is very cunning. And that's where we see him attacking our vulnerable society, those who are most vulnerable. And that's our youth. That's our people who suffer from mental health. And that's where we are stepping in as, working through God and defeating that enemy. And that's basically that's what we're doing, and we're just, we have very specialized professional people, mental health counselors and clinicians and housing specialists and employment specialists and directors of care. And but at the end of the day, we're just a group of people that are sitting around in a conference room, like planning on how to tackle this
and actually getting stuff done. Yeah. So if you want to be part of the change that you wish to see, we know you wish to see it. We hear you that you wish to see it. So be part of the change, and you can do so by funding and helping an organization who has a proven track record of helping the homelessness crisis in our area get better. Yeah. So make sure you log on to CHOB LV CHOBLV.org.
Yeah. Good job.
CHOBLV.org, and you can help support the Community House on Broadway. You can help support CHESS, which is their extended services organization. You can help support their youth shelter, which is Beth's Place, and you can do all of that on their website, CHOBLV.org.
We also just updated, which I'm very excited about because I no longer have to chase down paper packets. We just updated our volunteer application. It is also on our website. So if you go to under ways to give, volunteer, you just can read the volunteer webpage and the different opportunities that we have. Really, sky's the limit. I mean, you could do cook group, you can come tutor kids, you can, if you have a special skill, you can come teach kids. We have a gentleman who has equipment for ceramics and pottery, and he's going to bring equipment and teach kids how to do pottery. Cool. We have people who come and work with our younger elementary after-school program. We have a lot of different opportunities to volunteer. So there is an online application. It's just as if you were going to apply for a job, but it says volunteer and it says apply. and you are going to create an online account, which is great because then we will be able to keep your information on file.
Perfect.
And you can upload your fingerprinting documents, your TB testing. With the information you provide in the application, we can do the federal background check through DCYF. It just makes everything an easier process. So there is also opportunities to volunteer. And then please also, like Christin mentioned, check out the success stories on our website. They're beautiful. They're hard to read without getting emotional. And because they're real people, and these are people that we see almost daily. These are people that go to churches and speaking engagements with me and share their testimonies with congregations or with the public. And, I always say, that was only 2 stories.
Right.
We're sitting on 741 of them. And more coming every day. And imagine if we would have had Beth's place 10 years ago, the amount of heartbreak and trauma that could have been avoided for these people. And that's what we are looking to accomplish and to prevent in the next years to come. So check out the success stories. And then my last little bit, and then I'm gonna give you the mic back. By the way, it was Veronica Corningstone, played by Miss Christina Applegate on Anchorman.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Anyways, CARES campaign. So it's gonna be our 15th annual CARES campaign. CARES campaign runs from April through the end of July. And it's our campaign it's our fundraising campaign, essentially. And then during the campaign, we host a fundraising dinner. And this year, we're really excited because we have Christin this year. It's going to be the Breaking Bread benefit. And we are going to come together as a community. We are going to have it in the Longview Event Center. And we're excited because this year it's going to be in the Mount St. Helens room. So we're going to have 55 tables. So the web page will be up in a couple days to sign up to sponsor a table. It will be $400 to sponsor a table of 8. We're still working out the individual pricing for individual tickets, but that will be up shortly on the website. And we're really excited. It's May 3rd. It's a Saturday this year. And doors will open at 4:30. And then it ends at 8 p.m. But we're going to have a silent auction, a live auction, a paddle raise, dessert dash, testimonies. It's going to be a great time. Breaking Bread, we're going to work with actually Kim at Sugar Pearl.
Oh, yes, our girl.
Kim's, our dear friend. I just spoke with her last night and I'm so excited, but she's going to help us, and with Christin, we're going to take the teens at Beth's place on a field trip, and they're going to bake the bread that we serve on the tables. And Kristin's going to work with the teens to infuse different olive oils and vinegars. And so we're going to incorporate, our residents and our teens and our youth as much as possible. Because this dinner is really a way for our community to come together, and we want to fill that room with as much love as possible that night. And that is also a great way to support us as well, is that, sponsor a table that night and bring your checkbook and get some awesome silent auction items, some great live auction items, do the paddle raise, bid on a dessert, here's some wonderful stories and help us just have a very successful 2025 CARES campaign.
Woohoo.
yeah.
Yeah, so you can find that on the website as well, but it's not up yet. Oh, actually,
days.
it'll be up by the time this is up because we've got a delay, people.
Yeah.
It's okay. So you can find all of that at choblv.org. So many letters, so little time. Thank you, ladies, so much for coming on. This was Chelsea Allison and Christin Cole. We loved having you guys, and we will see you guys on the next episode of Connections and Cowlitz, which thank you to our sponsors, Serve Pro of Longview Kelso and JoJo and Coco Boutique. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Thank you.